He's not a bat, he's a man who fights crime. And we're gonna watch him fight for a minute at a time. With John and Niall and a guest who doesn't rhyme. It's Bat Minute!
Hello, people of Earth and beyond. This is another hiatus episode of Bat Minute, where we are looking at the film Mars Attacks. We are here to evaluate and exterminate Tim Burton's 1996 classic,
Classic?
alien invasion film, not a minute at a time, but just as an overall entity. I am one of the hosts, Niall McGowan, and dark is the suede that mows like a harvest.
Oh, I can't beat that. What the hell? I was just going to say, leading the invasion fleet. It is I, John Parker. But now you've one-upped me. You've beaten me.
I was like, that's it. Show's over. Can't do any better than that.
I'm not being upstaged.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Hi, it's me, Lol. I've been on a few shows before, but I'm not a podcaster.
Well, you are now.
Yeah. If you're on a show, you're a podcaster.
Literally.
That's how it works.
And hi, guys. My name's Neil, and I am one of the hosts of the Mogwai Minute. Indeed. Yeah, I don't have a quote for this thing, because I really just don't think this movie's quotable in any way, but okay.
See,
probably can probably.
I mean, I just quoted a very solid portion of the movie, Neil, and yeah. By the way, I'm George from the Mogwai Minute, the other part of the Mogwai Minute.
Yeah. I'm getting a vibe that from just that interaction, there's going to be some contention.
I had a feeling the moment you suggested this movie that it would be us trying to convince Neil that it was good for an hour and a half.
Let's get it out of the way.
Good luck.
Let's just say it, right? Let's go round. Who likes the movie? I really like the movie. I think it could be better, but I really enjoy it. Always have.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with this movie. Actually, I remember distinctly, weirdly enough, coming back from it, having loved it in the cinema, but I went with my dad. And I remember distinctly one of his critiques when I got into my mum was saying, like, oh, God, yeah, it was terrible. It was like that movie Gremlins. It was just that kind of thing. And I was like, one, I was kind of like, he didn't like this movie, and two, are you low key knocking Gremlins at the same time?
No wonder you asked us on, because you had that childhood memory of it being compared.
Yeah. I'm thinking spiritually it is the same kind of like wacky creatures that are actually vicious killing machines coming in. And
I personally,
it's the same fun.
I adore this movie. It's funny. It's the cast is amazing. I think the premise is ridiculous, but it's such a nice send up of the whole 50s horror movie genre. It's great.
I really like it because I love Ed Wood, and I think that there's a lot of inspiration from that film in this one.
Oh, yeah.
So I enjoy it. I think it's really silly and fun. If you don't take it too seriously, it's a good watch.
It was like Burton's follow-up to Ed Wood, so it was as if like he had made that whole movie. He's like, I wish I could do a Martian invasion movie.
Wait,
like, turns out you can.
I'm famous.
Well, I didn't hate this movie quite as much as National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Everyone hated that.
I actually don't hate this movie. It's just I was really bored. I think my big problem with it is I don't understand what it is, because I don't think it's really a satire. It's definitely not a pointed satire. It might be a really dull, low level. Like, maybe it's like an accidental satire, because I don't feel like some of the stuff that he was trying... If he was trying to do satire, he's really missed the mark. So he might have accidentally stumbled across a few bits of satire, but this really, to me, is just more like a style exercise. It's just like an homage to the genre, and that's it. And he doesn't... And that's fine, do an homage, but make a good movie when you do that. Like... And I don't really feel like he has. And the other thing is it supposed to be funny?
Oh, yeah.
It's hilarious.
Wait, what are the funny bits then? Because I didn't laugh. Like I just didn't. This didn't make me laugh. This movie.
There's an undertone of dry humor to it. There's like in the instance where I can't remember her name, but when Annette Bening's character runs up to Byron in the casino and goes like, "Can you fly a plane?" And he's like, "Yeah, your husband can." He goes like, "No, he's dead." You know, it's just like a low key like. There's no real emotional upset. It's all like just, oh, this is happening, and we're all just having a good time in a weird way.
Yeah, and are you telling me that you didn't wet yourself laughing at the very last shot of this movie?
Oh, that was great.
No,
The
what? Wait.
landing on Tom Jones. Worth it just for that.
No.
I think I mentioned during the return season as well, like my favorite line delivered by Danny DeVito in anything is from Mars Attacks when he meets Tom Jones. He's like, "Hey, you're Tom Jones, right? It ain't unusual. Tom.
You might got an autograph." Can I just say, though, I understand what they're doing. You know, it's going for like a 50s, 60s kind of thing where you pack it full of stars and they're in it for 5 seconds. You know, a bit like a Grindhouse movie or something. But it is a tragic waste of DeVito. Yeah.
It's a tragic waste of all of them. None of them have enough to do. And,
Except
Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson's and
bizarrely has two roles for some ridiculous reason.
Because he's Jack Nicholson.
He wanted to play all of them, you know. He wanted to play every single role.
Yeah. Like Eddie
I
Murphy.
would have loved to seen that, though. Just like Jack Nicholson as Sarah Jessica Parker on that dog's body.
Yes.
Like that as a shot would have been amazing. But tragically not to be.
I mean, as much as I love this movie, it's funny to me. It's silly. It's daft. I just like humans getting destroyed. My only problem with it personally is I don't know if it would fit the movie, but I want the characters to have more room to breathe, like to grow on us and to develop. But they literally they are all 2-dimensional.
Well, that's part of the. I think that might be part of the thing because back in the 50s, that was sort of like the tone. It was like this is about the event. It wasn't about the characters. It's like Dr. So-and-so, and then this is his female counterpart. And this is like the young aspect of. There's always like these archetypes they're fitting in. They're never going to go like, oh well, you know what? I just had a realization that I'm stronger on my own when I do this sort of thing. That's not. They don't have room for that in this kind of movie.
No, they're not
bizarre
interested.
Too than in like because you even get people like some of the archetypes. It's almost as like some of them have like Tim Burton's done before, but better because like Glenn Close as the first lady, and then Natalie Portman as the president's daughter. That's just Lydia Dietz and Catherine O'Hara in Beetlejuice. Like the fact that even the Glenn Close is like redecorating the White House, and you're expecting her at any point to be like, if you do not let me cut this house and make it my own, I will go insane and I will take you with me. Like you're expecting those lines. You're like, why didn't they just cast Catherine O'Hara in that part? You could have got friggin' Winona Ryder in again just to play the daughter. Well, you could have made it a low-key sequel to Beetlejuice, wherein like, oh, she got rid of Jeffrey Jones, she's hooked up with Jack Nicholson, and now this is the family or something. But,
hey, that's a hell of a step up.
But the thing is, though, I kind of wish Natalie Portman was leaning more into like, oh yeah, I'm like a Lydia Dietz goth type, because at the end of the movie, she does not seem like she even cares about being there. She is literally like, I'm here saying lines.
That's how disaffected she is.
She's given nothing to do.
But it's just the fact, because her whole family dies, and at the end she's just got a real like, yeah. So you got a girlfriend? There's no like, she's just the life sucked out of her. It is like, so early in Natalie Portman's career to be that disaffected.
I think that's more like the vibe of the character she's playing. Like she's given this sort of like, she doesn't really change who she is, even through all this. She's like, okay, yeah, sure, let's make out.
But is that the point though? I mean, like Martians are attacking, the world's getting blown up. Life as we know it is over, and no one really cares. Everyone's just going about their business.
No, I think it's because
everyone's in this like dreamland kind of.
We confronted it, we defeated it, and now it's like, now we just move on with our lives. It's sort of like this whole
but for most of the movie, but like before they figure out how to beat them, a lot of stuff is happening, and no one seems to care. Everyone's just in their own kind of TV world where no one, and is that the point? I mean, is that part of the satire?
I think that's the message I got from it at the end, is because everyone who dies is someone who has an inherent, like, because the characters are so two-dimensional, they have an inherently obvious character flaw. Yeah. And it's the people who are kind of selfless and nice are the ones who survive. So you have Annette Bening there as a kind of hippie chick who was there. Yeah. Like, she does seem to care. She's the one who comes in to, she's married to Jack Nicholson in it, who was apparently, I think we speculated at the end of the last season that, oh yeah, Michael Keaton was supposed to be in this movie. And I was like, I bet it was supposed to be that part, because that character is just Beetlejuice dressed up in the cowboy outfit, doing the, I'll kill anything you want me to kill, I'll swallow anything you want me to swallow. Like that it's just that character again. But she's the only person that comes in and is just like, don't you see what's happening? And he's like, the galaxy's gonna be the greatest casino in all of Las Vegas and stuff. So I think it's just more like, at the end of it's like, if you're a nice person, you'll survive through sheer happenstance or something. And then everyone else is just like, you even have... But the message gets kind of muddled then, because like Rod Steiger's there as like the cliche general who's just like, we need to annihilate them and just go and kill. And then, he gets his comeuppance. But at the same time, it's like, well, he's right. He's like, we can't just let these aliens come down and friggin', you don't know what they're going to do. And it turns out, like, yeah, he's correct. Maybe you should have just attacked them from the off.
That's what confuses me about the message, though, because normally these type of movies, I don't know, maybe because it's trying to be a 50s and 60s kind of a thing. The general being right, essentially, they should have nuked them from second... Well, not nuked them, because that didn't work. But, they should have retaliated instantly. Which, that's a weird message. Normally, the message is the opposite. Is it because it's trying to do a movie from the past and the message there was kind of like a Might is Right Cold War kind of a thing?
I'm not sure, because then again, he does get... He's an unlikable character, and then he does get, like, he literally gets stepped on by the Martians. But at the end, this is like, yeah, they defeat them by sheer chance. Like, they just know it's like, oh yeah, the Slim Whitman, Indian love call is gonna help. And then it's just like, oh yeah, that was lucky. It's almost like complacency will see you through. If you're just like Lucas Haas and you're just like, oh, that's cool, and just sort of let everything wash over you and just be nice to people and don't really partake all that much. Like, be disaffected like Natalie Portman. Yeah. Like, you'll just get through. Because
that's a universal Tim Burton thing. Like, everyone who is clued in is the one who winds up benefiting at the end of the movie. Anyone who's like self-centered or like focused on their own thing, they're the ones who always like get something happening to them. That's just Tim Burton standard. That
was real.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that would be great, but that's how Tim Burton does it. He's all like everything. Tell me a movie like Edward Scissorhands, anyone, like, because she sees like the real artist in him, and then that's how that works. And Beetlejuice, like, Lydia sees the ghost because she's open to it and that sort of thing, and like she ends up benefiting from it. Whereas everyone who closes themselves off winds up getting eaten by a sandworm,
which is quite fitting considering your next podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, how would Dune be improved if they had went with the Tim Burton sandworms?
If they had done like the claymation version, I think so. Yeah, absolutely. Oh. At least the special effects would have held up better.
Speaking of claymation, Neil, I don't know whether you would have preferred this or not. This movie originally was going to be made in stop motion. So the aliens were all stop motion animation. And they got like 8 months into production on it before the studio were like, do CGI, it's cheaper.
Yeah, I would have preferred it. Definitely.
It would have been a lot more authentic to the feel they're going for. It is a bit weird they did the switch, but apparently it saved a lot of money.
No, it's terrible effects, though. I mean, maybe that's the point as well. It's bad effects, right? Like the old 50s sci-fi movies. But
that's one of the things Burton wanted, even with the stop motion. He said, like, I want this to look cheap.
Yeah.
So there you go.
But this came out a few months after Independence Day, and the contrast is stark. I mean, it was quite fortuitous that it came out like so close to Independence Day, because I'm not sure they kind of obviously didn't time it like to coincide.
They were working on this long before. Yeah.
So that actually was the demise of the film, because Independence Day beat it. It actually ended up only making like 1 million, so it was kind of to the detriment of the film.
If you've been working on something for years and then this other similar film comes out at the same time.
Apparently, though, they were well aware of it, because evidently in the early stages of the making Independence Day, they were like still hammering out the details, and then they knew that Mars Attacks was been developed, and they actually said, you know what we should do? That's supposed to be slated for an August release of 96. What we should do is make sure that ours comes out before that. So let's theme it around July 4th. Oh. And that way, we'll definitely beat them to theaters, because we'll need to get it done for that date. And that's why cheeky. Independence Day became Independence Day, apparently.
Yeah, I guess these projects, I guess there is just a general awareness of projects that are in the works around Hollywood. So, it's no surprise that they kind of knew. What's interesting, though, is that it came out after... I mean, Independence Day wanted to come out before, so did. They didn't want the send up first and then to be kind of the proof of the send up, right? They wanted to just be
that makes
its own
sense
thing.
that way around, actually.
Yeah, and then that also works better for this movie to have something out there in the zeitgeist and then to send it up. Otherwise, it's kind of on its own, and it's like, oh yeah, we haven't seen one of those movies for a while. But it does for me.
Actually,
it does for me. It just highlights the really terrible special effects, and it didn't work for me. And I think because for me, when we looked at Gremlins 2 and some of the very early kind of effects that they used in terms of the CGI, I mean, it just doesn't hold up at all, and it really takes me out of it. And this did as well. And I think stop motion animation is obviously not real, right? But it kind of doesn't take me out for some reason. It just
because it's physically there. There's something to look at.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe that's just all it takes. But I mean, it's it's kind of faked, right? It's not really happening. But it doesn't take me out. But really bad CGI just immediately switches me off to any movie.
Am I the only one who actually quite liked the CGI still?
I thought it was great. I thought it fit the idiom perfectly. And honestly, I'm going to say this right now. I think this is a vastly superior movie to Independence Day.
Ooh,
I think it's funnier. Okay. I think it's better written. I think it's the special effects are comical in the context of this thing. I think they fit the movie really well. I think Independence Day is some massively stupid budget oriented type thing that is just about, it has a lot of people in it. It has a lot of stories, but they're all boring. And I can watch Independence Day. Maybe 30% of it I like. The rest of it I just could not give a shit about. Whereas this one I can watch it start to finish every time.
Well, I think they're hard to compare because they're just very different tonally. Yeah. Everything about Independence Day is just big budget action movie, and it's a terribly written movie. It's awful. But
I love it though.
I love it too. But because that kind of movie, you can just switch the brain off and enjoy it, right?
Oh yeah.
I can't do that with this movie, guys. I just can't swch my brain off and enjoy this movie. I tried to switch my brain off. I just got bored.
This is your first time watching it, right?
No, I watched it many years ago, probably when it first came out.
I really think that watching this multiple times sort of bushes away, and kind of exposes a lot more of the satire and a lot more of the subtlety.
Do you think there's a lot of little stuff in there that I missed?
I do.
I don't know.
Little fun things, little quirks because you talked about where's the satire? I'm they're constantly sending up politicians, America's reaction to drastic events. The whole line of they're not getting a TV. That's sort of thing. That's what they're coming for. The whole Jack Black cameo of Billy Ray. He can reassemble his gun in a minute and a half, but then when it comes down to it, he drops the clip and he gets vaporized as he tries to surrender. I mean, that's this is a whole send up of American culture and subculture and how they take this sort of thing in a weird spectacle value rather than reacting to it the core members do. Basically, it says Americans are stupid, and I agree.
I think maybe what would have worked then, if that's putting Neil off, it might have put some other people off. Maybe they should have lent into that even more and gone full satire, really hardcore with it. But that might have put me off then. I don't know.
I don't know how much further they could have gone with it. I think the satire is very apparent, which is why I was surprised that Neil didn't see a lot of the humor in it.
Well, actually, I will say, interestingly enough, though, because as much as this seems this is such a Tim Burton project, because he's a guy who's very open about his love of old cheesy B movies from the 50s and stuff. This actually, the project of Mars Attacks was in development long before he came on board. It was actually the brainchild of Alex Cox. Yeah. The guy who directed Repo Man and Sid and Nancy and stuff. Really great satirical director Alex Cox. And apparently he at one point, you can't get them anymore because I went looking for him. He based it again on the Topps trading cards, which is where the whole movie idea comes from. And ironically enough, Topps would do a very popular range of cards for Batman when that came out as well. So I guess that worked out quite nicely.
Oh, and they had a sequel. They had a sequel set of cards. Which I only found out about before we did this because a friend of ours runs what's it called, Lol?
The Horror Crypt.
The Horror Crypt in Blackpool, and he's got them on display, and they're called Dinosaurs Attack, and that was a potential movie as well. They were which one should we do? And they settled on the Mars one.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we could have got in that sweet Jurassic Park action.
Well, that's why Tim Burton didn't want to switch when he came onto the project. That's why he didn't want to switch and do that. He was like, it's too much like Jurassic Park. And then this got called, it's too much like Independence Day.
But the thing is, like, the original draft that Alex Cox did, his original idea was a satire of American consumerism, where Martians colonize the Earth in order to use it as a dumping ground for various addictive and outright useless products.
Oh, that'd be funny.
And the thing is, various news stories were talking about it because, this was written in 1989, and it has a joke in it about Donald Trump being president.
Oh,
it's like, holy crap. It's like, back in the 80s, this was like, oh, God, wouldn't that be a crazy nightmare if that ever happened?
Mars Attacks draft did it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mars Attacks draft.
God damn it. How dare you?
But that's the thing, because, Alex Cox, he based it on his enthusiasm for those cars, which were banned in Britain at the time. He was like, as a young man, he managed to get, because they're so graphically violent, they were banned in the UK. And then he managed to get his hands on them, because he's a young English lad. Very Liverpool-based, actually, Alex Cox. Like, he had a big stint where he worked exclusively in Liverpool. And he managed to get his hands on all of them before the ban kicked in.
That's crazy. The ones I looked at, I did look at some of them. I didn't see too much violence that what I would consider violent, maybe at the time. But what I thought was it was kind of subtly sexual.
Oh, yeah.
The aliens were always like, carrying off beautiful women in their nightgowns, taking them to their spaceships, and it's like, ooh, that's a bit erotic.
Yeah. Oh, there is one where there's like a woman in a bikini watching a Martian basically do like the Kalima move from Temple of Doom. He's a Martian literally ripping a man's heart right out of his chest, and it's very gory. So it's like, oh yeah, I can imagine back in like early 50s, this would have been like, ooh, crap, you can't have that. Kids can't be looking at this kind of thing.
I just feel it needs, to me, satire works when it's funny, and I just wasn't laughing at this. And maybe, if you guys find it funny, that's, I'm more for that, and good on yous. It didn't tickle my particular funny bone. And I'll tell you someone who agrees with me here is Roger Ebert. And if I can read a little bit of Roger Ebert's, would you mind if I read a little bit of his review out to you guys?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, Roger Ebert says, watching Nicholson deliver his televised fireside chat with the nation about the impending saucer attack, I wondered, why is this supposed to be funny? Burton has made a common mistake. He assumes it is funny simply to be doing a parody, when in fact the material has to be funny in its own right. It isn't funny that Jack Nicholson is the president. It's only funny if the writing makes the role comic. Peter Sellers was funny in Dr. Strangelove, one of this movie's many inspirations, because the story was funny. Mars Attacks is not so much a comedy as a replica of tacky old saucer movies, not so much a parody as the real thing. And that is something that I completely agree with. And it was interesting because I read a couple of... I watched it this afternoon. I wrote my notes out while I was watching it. And some of the notes I've got are like things like, Burton is just better at dreamworld surrealism than satire, and that's something that I kind of really believe. He does really, really well with just, imagined worlds, and he's got his own style about that, and it really rings true, and I love it. And, you guys know I love Batman Returns.
Oh, God, yeah.
And not just for Batman, Batman's barely in it. It's the whole world.
2 scenes.
So I just, and then I read a few kind of reviews and a few kind of thought pieces about it after, and I was, the fact that Ebert then kind of, wrote it obviously a lot better than I ever could. So that really rang true with me. It just, to me, it needs to be funnier in the writing. I just don't think this was particularly written in that way.
I get that because as much as I like it, it doesn't come across fully as a comedy. It is kind of like, here's my version of an old flying saucer film with some jokes in it.
Interesting. I find it. I remember like watching this, just laughing like every couple of seconds, like every minute or two, like consistently, like, oh yeah, look at that, or that's funny, George. Or that's a thing, or that little tonal bit, or that look on their face, that sort of thing. I just constantly found myself amused by it.
Like, did you like the whole head swapping thing?
Yeah, I thought that was weird. When
did you think
the
it's
reveal,
funny?
and you have like the body with the dog's head on it, and I thought it was great. And then, like, just the random bit later on where they're like, right before they invade, and you got, like, her head on the dog's body and Pierce Brosnan's head floating, talking, and they're having, like, a conversation, and they're just, like, hanging out in the middle of this busy room, and they're like, they seem to be really, like, agitated. Just the absurdity of a disembodied head talking to a woman's head on a chihuahua's body. That just tableau, it kills me.
Yeah, and Futurama clearly took inspiration, because at one point you see her head in a glass jar.
Yeah.
Which was exactly what Futurama does every damn
So many
episode.
later
There's
things
some
took from
head.
like this sort of vibe. Like the whole We Come in Peace, like crowded thing. Did you guys ever see Monsters vs. Aliens, the DreamWorks movie?
Oh,
They have
yeah.
an almost exactly similar scene with like, everyone's around, like, they do the whole like Axel F on the keyboard thing, but they have the mix of close encounters with this movie, and then, obviously the aliens start to attack. But this movie has a cornerstone in culture. It inspires people.
Just in talking about some of those scenes, though, like, maybe it's because we've spent like several years now analyzing things from the Burton Batman movies in such detail. But I was just noticing loads of like little self-referential hints to his own work, like that scene of Nicholson doing the fireside chat. That to me was like this. It's the exact setup of the Joker doing come on, the festival. I've taken off my makeup. Let's see if you can take off yours.
It was exactly the same.
And then even when the Martians bring in Sarah Jessica Parker's head, in the background there's like a kind of chunky clown just floating in water. And it's like the dead. It's like as he was called in the movie, Fat Clown. When you see his body under the water, it's like, is that supposed to be a nod, or is it just supposed to be like, this ought to be funny if the Martians just had a clown in a tank for God knows what reason.
I think it'd be both. I think it's hilarious when you're like, okay, that's and it looks like Pennywise as well with the makeup style and everything.
Oh yeah.
So you get like a weird. Is that a Stephen King reference, or is it just like that style of creepy clown that they decided to throw in the tank?
Yeah.
Well,
and there's even little things like because apparently Michael J. Fox's role, apparently his last ever theatrically released film too, for Michael J. Fox. But because his part was originally offered to Johnny Depp, and of course his character is hooked up with Sarah Jessica Parker, and that would have meant that like, if they had appeared together, that would have been a nod to like, and Ed Wood, they were a couple at the beginning of that movie as well, and even things like, had Michael Keaton played the sleazy casino owner cowboy guy that Jack Nicholson plays, he's hooked up with Annette Bening, who was the original, choice for Catwoman. And then, there would have been, had she been Catwoman and Michael Keaton had played that part, that would have been Batman and Catwoman back together and stuff.
To be fair, though, that's only funny to people like us.
Oh, yeah, totally. But it just seemed like, just even like little things like the similarities in the characters from his other films and stuff too. I just thought that it was a guy finally settling into his own, that level of his career where he's like, I have a style now that people know and things that people will recognize. So he's kind of like not in anywhere near the same level, but like the way that Twin Peaks: The Return was kind of like David Lynch celebrating all of his own movies, basically, like referencing everything he's already done. This is kind of like Tim Burton just basking in his own Tim Burton-ness. Of like, a little nods to that, a little nods to this. And,
I feel like that if the Martians had gotten a hold of that combo and swapped their heads, it would have been Catman and Batwoman.
Oh, that should have been a sequel. Come on.
You mentioned Nyla is the last movie role of Michael J. Fox. This is also the last movie role of Sylvia Sidney as the grandma.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
and she's great. She's my favorite thing in this movie, guys.
I want to see Muffy and Richie.
She's so
and
good.
Slim.
Massive star of the 1930s, but like now you see her, it's just like, it's Juno, your caseworker. It's just like, that one role from Beetlejuice has now dictated that entire.
Actually, if you look at early photos of her, she looks a lot like Annette Bening. A lot like Annette Bening.
She's beautiful.
She's gorgeous.
I also recently rewatched Damien Omen 2. I watched the Omen series, and she's in that. So that was I recognize her from that too, not just Beetlejuice.
I completely forgot. I haven't seen that in years.
It's a good one.
I watched the Omen 1 all the time, but the others I haven't seen.
2 holds up. It's good.
I always remember having a little bit of pride because I always have to keep saying to people that like Sam Neill, people are like, he's in New Zealand. It's like, no, Sam Neill spent 11 years of his childhood in Omagh in Northern Ireland, right up the road from where I lived. So when he was like Damien in like the Omen 3, was it Omen 3 or Omen 4?
3.
Yeah, I always have a little bit of pride. I'm like, that's right, Sam. There he is. Like anytime Jurassic Park's mentioned, I was like, That's a good old man right there, Sam Neill. Like,
So does Northern Ireland like go to war with New Zealand all the time over who claims salmon?
I think that they've slept on it. They've been too busy warring in amongst themselves to be like, New Zealand should be the real target. They're claiming this actor.
He references some Scouse streets as well in that particular film.
Does he?
Yeah, I think he mentions Sefton Park.
Oh yeah, down the road from us.
Nice.
'Cause he's gonna cull like the firstborn or something.
Of Sefton
right.
Park. Any firstborn around
Probably
the
for the
Sefton Park
best.
area.
It's like a biblical thing, isn't it?
That was what the Penguin was going to do in Batman Returns. He's like, I'm going over to Liverpool and we're going to kill the firstborn of Sefton Park.
Oh, that would have been gold.
I also liked Paul Winfield in this movie, and I like him from The Terminator as the cop.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
class.
hell yeah.
He's great.
Batman has a bad track record with like coming up against alien forces.
And then,
Yeah.
Of course, Wrath of Khan as well goes up
Oh, yeah,
against
yeah,
Khan.
that's right, yeah.
He freaking gets screwed over.
Well, speaking of actors we liked, right? I'm going to say one. It's an obvious one. I absolutely loved Jack Nicholson being the president.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I thought like he's got an edge on him where he might be kind of dodgy and suspect, as he's Jack Nicholson. But the movie doesn't go into that. Like it doesn't say, "Oh, he's a crooked president," because that would be too easy to do. But there's that edge to him where you think maybe he is. Is he a good president? I don't know.
Oh, they could have had things like because they make a point of having a scene where Martin Short is out just picking up prostitutes.
One of the only times I've ever liked Martin Short in anything.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's definitely hit or miss, and mostly miss for me. So this and Father of the Bride are probably like my two favorite roles he's ever done.
Yeah.
Oh, the thing is, like, I hate him in Father of the Bride. Like, I really, really despise him in that movie.
I love it. I love
I feel
his
like that wasn't really acting. He probably does just pick up prostitutes.
Yeah, that's
just Martin Short.
Well, that's the thing, though, because
My job is really stressful. Oh.
but they could have had he was going to get the prostitutes for Jack Nicholson because Jack Nicholson has that kind of sleazy vibe about him. But no, they kind of keep Nicholson as been a very straight-laced, like he just seems to be like he's trying his best to be.
Well, that's the
He's-
thing. There's hints sometimes that he's kind of, he's trying to play the media.
Yeah,
and
he's a
things
very
like that.
solid politician, and I love that they like give him this straight role that is basically like worried about the voters, worried about the income. What does it look like? Are you sure I should be there for this photo op type thing? Is like
Yeah, but not too far where he's like neglecting lives to do that.
yeah.
Well, on that note of Jack Nicholson, from the research I did, apparently he kind of saved the movie because a lot of people were interested in becoming part of it when they realised that he was on board.
That's awesome.
So I think he gave people like a call around.
Not like his friends.
Well, yeah. Let me just see who.
Nice.
So yeah, he kind of saved the sort of movie.
Okay, yeah, he must have a lot of pull, with his fellow
I mean, if Jack
Hollywood.
Nicholson's in a film, I'm going to sign on.
I really kind of wish though he had played it a bit more because you could have had like instead of Martin Short, Jack Nicholson was the reason that Tracy Walter played Bob in Batman '89. You could have had Tracy Walter friggin' playing the Martin Short character.
I'd like to see
oh
him
my
in
god,
this.
he's back!
Gold, that'd be so good. We need Tracy Walter.
Also-
Of course, Tracy Walter also appeared in Repo Man, directed by Alex Cox,
Oh,
the guy
all
who
connected.
originated this
Full
whole
circle.
project.
Also in this movie is Fireball from The Running Man,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Jim Brown.
Yep.
And there was at one point he gets, you see him in Caesar's Palace and there's like a PA announcement that he's got a phone call. And it really reminded me of the bit in The Running Man where like the two other runners have died, the two other stalkers have died, and you see Fireball in like, they're in like the locker room, aren't they? And he just gets a PA announcement like, Fireball to costume, Fireball to costume. And he's like, oh, I'm on. That really reminded me of that, but that was it.
Yeah,
innit?
maybe that's what they were doing.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
It's a subtle reference, if so. But it's the kind of thing
It's only
weirdos
for
like
me.
us would put in a movie.
That's the thing. That was always my point of it. I've never engaged with the debate all that much, though. But a couple of years back, you might recall that Tim Burton got slandered with accusations of being a bit racist, basically, because his films are so predominantly lily white, basically.
Yeah. I mean, they are, but
yeah.
that
But that was
doesn't
always
mean
the
he's
there because he had some questionable quotes about like, oh, I never, he just doesn't care about putting in representation for the sake of it and all this kind of thing.
Okay.
And but I was always been like, well, you look at Tim Burton's movies. He cast Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent, who was traditionally a white character. He wanted Sammy Davis Jr. to play Beetlejuice, and Jim Brown and Pam Grier and those kids are one of the few the few survivors of Mars attacks.
Oh, you recognize?
Fantastic as well.
Do you recognize
She's
one of the
great.
boys?
Oh, the boys go on to be somebody famous? Like,
Yeah, the older one, that's Ray J. Most famous for the Kim Kardashian Ray J sex tape. So if you Google Hard Life, or not very hard, you can
I
see
had no
his,
idea.
You can see his
Oh my
penis. Yeah, because when I first saw him, I'm like, oh, is that what's his name from Buffy or not Angel? James Gunn, not James Gunn. I'm blanking on his name because it wasn't him. I looked it up. I'm like, oh, that's Ray J.
I know you mean.
Holy crap!
it would have been great though in the middle of that sex tape. Pam Grier burst in and was like, "Come on, get out of here! Go back to school, you guys."
Actually, I will go back to what you said, Lolo. Pam Grier. Holy
Totally
crap,
wasted.
Why does she look better in the 90s than she ever looked?
Oh,
She's
she's
great.
amazing.
In, Jackie Brown, she looks incredible.
Yeah.
But did someone tell her she was in a satire or a comedy? Because she plays it real straight and she does a great job, but like those characters they just play it really straight.
You got
I
to
don't
have
get
like
it.
certain like elements. Like that's the thing is like the entire their whole family dynamic is very realistic. The only time you see any of a hint of satire is when you run into like the pit boss. He's like, "Yeah, I could get Buster Douglas for the same money, maybe even less. You know, get back to work." That's what he's saying.
Some people are heightening the satire more than others because Pierce Brosnan is full on playing like cliched B-movie scientist with like the pipes constantly at his mouth and stuff. And
The assumption that because someone's advanced, they're more civilized, which is a terrible human idea, but that's how he's going by it. Let's give him a chance.
And there's even like the shot of like when the Martian leader first like sends a message and he's been interviewed by Sarah Jessica Parker on air. And then they both stand up, like, kind of embracing each other. Like, and the camera really lingers on. It's like, this is supposed to be, like, you've seen this in every 50s sci-fi movie of, like, the lead couple, like, embracing and stuff. And the man's way taller than the woman and all this kind of thing. And it's like, but he seems to be going, like, oh, this is a very, like, full-on satire of that type of character. Whereas, like, Lucas Haas is just kind of playing, like, yeah, I'm just, like, a nice kid. Like, I'm not really going for any specific, role. He just seems to be more, like, he's just, like, yeah, he's just a guy and stuff.
Well, that's a good mix, the old-fashioned and then the modern.
Yeah. I have to say, though, in talking about, like, because I didn't think a lot of people were wasted. I thought, like, no, they got their nice... Most of them get good deaths and stuff. Really love Nicholson's president's death, which, again, is kind of a nod to the Joker buzzer in a weird way. But, like, the one person I felt was drastically wasted, and I forgot was even in the movie, is Christina Applegate.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you have Kelly Bundy, like one of the biggest TV stars of the early 90s in your movie, and I don't even think she gets like a line. She's just nothing in the film.
No, I think she hugs Billy Ray and she's like, she says something to him as he's getting on the bus. But the whole Jack Black thing is overlooked because I keep forgetting he's in the movie till I watch the movie again. I'm like, oh shit,
totally, every time.
Jack Black.
But Christina Applegate
It's very different though.
He does.
So
Jack Black definitely
different.
does.
Yeah.
Mm. But Christina
He looks
Applegate
good,
in a surprising role as another hot but dumb, scantily clad chick.
This is before she came out with like, don't tell mom the babysitter's dead, and started to prove the fact that she was like way more of an actress than people would give her credit for because she was only known for Kelly Bundy for so long.
Yeah.
It took her a while to dig out of that.
though, because they actually got like, it's one of these things of like, oh, finally they're giving these people work, where like her and Linda Cardellini are like the headliners of this Dead to Me show on Netflix. And it's just like there's loads of people in it, but it's like it's a real two headliner kind of show. It's both these women are on their top of their game and they finally got their own freaking show.
Did you ever see Samantha Who?
No, actually.
It was a really good show. It's about a woman who was like really kind of like A-type, like really aggressive, and then gets amnesia, and then realizes through interacting with her friends and family that she was a horrible human being, and realizes she doesn't want to be that way anymore. And so this whole bit, and like you're like, is she ever going to get her memory back? Because if she does, is she going to be a horrible person again? Because I mean, she's living back at home with her parents and reconnecting. It's a really nice but really well done sitcom. And I don't know.
Does it end on the note that like she remembers who she is, remembers that she has a doctorate, gets in a TARDIS, flies off? It was all a prequel, the freaking Doctor Who, the whole damn time.
Yep.
Someone I didn't think, because I thought quite a few were wasted, but someone who wasn't, I absolutely love Pierce Brosnan in this.
Oh yeah.
He's on form. I mean, he's great at playing like a a kind of smarmy, posh, almost like a cad, but not all the way. He was very Dick Tremaine from Twin Peaks.
Like a James Bondy kind of vibe.
Yeah, it's a James Bond mixed with Dick Tremaine. Like
Pierce Brosnan's got a James Bondy kind of vibe.
Exactly. It's like, maybe so,
Oh. I'll tell you.
Who was in line for that role?
Oh, no.
Hugh Grant.
Oh, he would have been
yeah,
good.
yeah.
Mm.
Except he'd been like,
But
the Martians are attacking. It's like, oh, come, just spit it out, spit it out.
So usually I would be like, oh yeah, Hugh Grant can only do like Charmingly Befuddled until I saw him in Paddington 2. And I was like, I love Hugh Grant now. He was such a great villain in that. I was like, oh, give this man every role now. I want to see the acting chops come out.
He's one of those who got lumbered with the rom-com kind of a role, which is weird because he's not exactly. I don't mean this as a diss. He's not typically handsome. He's very dorky.
I like Michael J. Fox in this because I think he just underplays it, and I think this movie badly needs someone to just underplay something. But he just conveys, because his characters actually has some sort of element to it, right? He's like he's dating the other one, and he's like got this inferiority complex because she's obviously doing better with a dumb show. And he's trying to do like proper journalism, and that really comes across, and that's all just in subtle acting.
I really do love the scene where like they're getting ready for the first alien landing, and he's like fixing his hair and stuff, and she's really doing it like, "Hey, Jason!" like screaming his name, and he's just kind of like.
I swear, Neil, this isn't like planned, but he's my least favorite character in this movie.
Oh, come on,
absolutely!
George.
From the moment he's like watching the playback, goes like. Hair looks good. And just trying to get validation from everyone. It's like, ugh. Like maybe it's just I hate that kind of person, and he does it well. But he's my least favorite character in the movie.
Oh well, yeah. You don't like him. I mean, you don't hate him either. I don't think he's okay as a human. He's just trying to do a good job and things. He's not like a complete arsehole, is he?
Yeah, and he's on the receiving end of just this like bullshit journalism where it's just all style over substance, and he's actually trying to get an interview, and he's like, he misses out on the interview with Pierce Brosnan. He's like, oh, we should have totally got him. Yeah, we should.
Yeah. He should have, compared to who bloody did.
Yeah.
Although I'm talking about like other elements though, like repeated things that come up from like Tim Burton movies. One of the biggest ones people will notice is like the Martian girl who was sent. I think one thing I didn't get about the Martians' plan. I'll give the Independence Day aliens, this. They were way more efficient because they just show up and blow the crap out of everything. But the Martians seem to dick around for a long time.
Oh yeah, the Martians in this, they're trolls. Like that's what they love, just winding people up.
But it's like they send in the Martian girl to assassinate the president. And it's like, why not just go and blow up the White House? Like, you've got the forces for it.
Well, because they don't seem to have like the air-to-ground based like firepower that they do in '94. They have like more ground troops, that sort of thing. They do have like the mech robots that they come in later, but that's not nearly. Those are cool, but they're not really as as capable.
But they do a few like big ones, like they blow up Big Ben, right?
Yeah. Bowling with the Easter Island statues and stuff.
I love that bit. That's when it really goes.
Oh yeah, or when they shoot the Washington Monument and try to drop it on Boy Scouts.
No,
that's hilarious.
No, it's not.
They're aiming for the Boy Scouts, man. Like, oh no, wait, here we go. We missed.
But there's a couple of references in there. One thing. So you get the Martian girl shows up, very similar in to Vampire, of course, from one of Ed Wood's people.
Oh yeah, the way she moves and everything's very vampire. It's very drag.
Yeah,
I'm like watching Drag Race or something.
But it's like that's played by Lisa Marie, who at the time was Tim Burton's girlfrild.
Oh yeah, do you know how they met? How they bonded?
Drag shows?
Apparently they were bonded over mutual sightings of UFOs.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have to find out what Tim Burton saw with this UFO, and I can't get it in Google.
No, there's no more info than that I could find.
That's what if I was at a Tim Burton Q&A, I'll be like, what? Tell us about this friggin' UFO story. Like, I gotta know. But the fact that Lisa Marie, of course, played Vampira in Ed Wood, but that kind of persona as well is very similar to the Poodle Lady from Batman Returns. Like a very weird, big-haired, stoic, sort of otherworldly, random pale woman who just seems to glide along and stuff.
Much like the Poodle Lady, I think this Martian assassin, sorry, Lol, she's very, very sexy.
Oh, yeah, she's very, very attractive. Yeah, for sure.
She's extremely drag, as John said. And I've got a few facts about the costumes. On
All
that
right.
one, actually.
Excellent.
Cool.
Well, the wigs were 2 wigs stuck together, and apparently they scarred her head.
Oh, God.
Oh my
Wow.
God.
So she still has a permanent scar from wearing
What?
the wig because
Holy
it was
crap.
so heavy. And the other thing is that it was based on Marilyn Monroe and Barbarella. Jane Fonda and
Barbarella, I can see that.
That's, yes.
But
Yeah,
the
makes
costumes,
sense.
I mean, Colleen Atwood's just hit it out the park again. Fantastic job.
When does she not?
I feel bad though for Lisa Marie now, because it's kind of like Tim Burton continually seemed to screw her over. She got scarred making a movie with him, and then apparently at the end it's like, oh, they were dated up until he did Planet of the Apes, and then he hooked up with Helena Bonham Carter, and then it was just like, yep, that was dear baby, welcome to Dumpsville.
He does have a trend for
Lisa
that. Like,
Marie.
you can see whenever he brings out a new movie, you can tell instantly, oh, he's going to hook up with this actress in this film.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye on Eva Green. It's like, well, all right, Eva, I think Tim Burton's got his sights on you here. But the thing, did you spot though? Like, there was a couple within that scene. There's a few things I thought, like, well, one, because he's talking about like, oh yeah, we call this the Kennedy room because of course Kennedy was supposed to have allegedly had women around the White House.
Marilyn Monroe
including
specifically.
Marilyn Monroe, probably.
Yeah.
It's not allegedly, Niall. I'm pretty sure this is true.
But of course, the way to get into the Kennedy room is he's got a bust. He lifts up the head and pushes a button, which is of course the Adam West entrance to the Batcave. So it's like
Very
he's doing
Batman
a little.
moment.
Everything's connected.
But even when they went in, though, that fish tank and the way they were looking at each other through it, maybe it was because, like, I don't know if they would have synced it up and maybe it just wouldn't have worked out in time. But it really reminded me of the Baz Luhrmann Romeo and Juliet. Yeah. I was like, because that was out like 95. Maybe they were trying to do a riff on that. It's like people keep seeing that in the trailers and stuff for that movie. Everybody knows that scene. So we'll do a little nod to it with this.
It was too similar. Like that's you said it about 5 times, didn't you, Lloyd? You're like,
Like-
this is Romeo and Juliet.
To be fair, I thought they came out the same year, so
Well, maybe they did, though. It seems like it's one of these things, like, it could be just sheer coincidence, but then it's so similar.
yeah.
It's like, is it coincidence, though? It's a bit too on the nose, but...
Another movie that I hate, by the way.
Really?
oh come on.
Oh, God.
Curse on both your houses, Neil. A curse on both your houses.
How can you hate that? It's
Oh,
great.
it's so awful.
It's so much fun, Neil. The music's
So
good.
awful.
It's a really cool
It's
version.
brilliant.
I love
almost
it.
as
Really
awful
original,
as
brilliant.
Titanic.
But Arnold Schwarzenegger's not in it, so Neil doesn't like it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
basically.
Arnold Schwarzenegger or Zach Galligan are not in the movies.
I would have really liked Arnold Schwarzenegger in this.
He would have been great.
He could have played the part of Byron, you know, the ex-boxer. You could have had Arnold in that role.
I would have let Arnold play
Too much
any
whiteness,
role in this.
John, we need
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
say, like,
that's
how many
true,
more
that's true.
white people you want to get? I mean, get in this movie there. We got a lot.
Yeah. I'm going to retract that. I don't want to recast, a person of color as a white
No.
guy. I apologize.
Jim Brown does a
Maybe
good
Scarlett Johansson could have done it. She seems to enjoy playing people of colour.
Absolutely.
job. Ooh.
And she could have done the
She could
whole
play
like,
anyone,
Black
she
Widow
says.
thing.
Play a
Yeah.
teabag.
I will say that, I would have really, now you've said Arnie should be in it, it's like, damn it, he should be in it. It's much like, oh, they should have got him. Like, but
Yeah,
I
because it
would
would have been like Last Action Hero, which we both defend.
Oh, yeah.
Neil might have enjoyed that actually because he would have thrown a few one-liners in there, so you might have found that more funny.
So,
I would have loved to see him play if they couldn't convince Jack Nicholson to do like the Artland part, like Arnold Schwarzenegger as that casino vault owner would have been amazing. And everyone would be telling Tim, this does not work. I know. That's what makes it so great.
As great as that would be, I picked him to be Byron specifically because, well, not only who doesn't want to see Arnie running around in Egyptian outfits, but I love that he has a fist fight with the Martian.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, the fact that the Martian is up for this fight, the Martian's like, yeah, I can take him.
I like the Martians. Let's just stick
well,
around.
apparently the Martian is the only one who hasn't seen him fight, because that whole running gag is like, oh, I saw you fight in '76, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, glad somebody made money on that fight.
Well, the Martians haven't got those radio waves yet, you know.
I would like to have cast Robert Picardo in this movie.
Oh,
I would put, maybe him as the casino owner would have been good because he's good at over the top.
Ooh, I would have.
I mean,
liked that.
he would have been.
It's not that I want rid of
Yeah,
Jack.
because he would he's already bald, and he's already played like an over-the-top cowboy. So
Yeah, exactly.
That casino building's really cool though, isn't it? Apparently Tim really wanted to immortalise that on film.
Oh, is it real?
Yeah, it's real, and it was demolished as well. So he took the footage and filmed it and put it in the film.
Oh, like the
so
last...
the aliens like destroying it was a real.
It looked like a real building collapsing, which is I was like watching it like
it was.
Oh, they demolished. That's an actual demolition.
Yeah, that was
Holy
it's
crap.
an actual demolition.
you can tell because it falls in sections,
Awesome.
and that's always a sign of like a really solid, well orchestrated, like implosion type thing versus just like it blowing up.
It's I'm going to sound like a conspiracy theorist now. I don't mean it in this way. But when I saw it collapse, I thought, I said to Lal, it fell down like the Twin Towers. I'm not saying they were demolished from within.
Martian death rays don't melt steel beams, John.
Clearly they do. It was a Martian.
I like the little nod to the globe rolling out. He actually had that put in there, had it like popped out the window because that was supposedly what killed Jack Nicholson's character, first one anyway. And how you see it just like shooting out of the window as the whole thing falls over.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
Yeah. There's a couple of things though I just didn't get in terms of like running jokes they had because
Go on, Niall.
the thing with the birds, the Martian, everything's like, oh, we come in peace, and then this guy releases a dove, and then that seems to set off the Martians to like massacre everybody, and then later on you find out like no, they were just going to massacre everybody anyway.
Yeah, they're just dickheads.
But there's a moment though when the Martian is looking at that dove, where you're like, oh my god. So, and then the recurring thing about these birds showing up, I was like, what purpose does that serve?
I think the first one is just a joke because it's like, we come in peace and here's our sign of peace and we vaporize it. And like, oh, that's weird. And then later on, they always seem to be like making noise and they obviously have issues with high-pitched noises. So I think they're having a response to that.
Oh, they don't like the bird like they don't like the music.
Exactly.
Ah, okay. Because my thinking, like, let's make sure we're on the same page here. I think we are. You know when it's translating the Martians?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
The translator is correct, right? Somehow this guy has made it work. When they say we come in peace, they are just trolling, yeah.
I don't know, because it's like, when he's walking around, well, it does have the whole, like, for long is the suede that mows like a harvest and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's this, like, at the end they have the recurring thing of, like, the street's been in complete chaos and the Martians walking around saying like, don't run, we are your friends.
Well, that's what makes me think they're just taking the piss. Like they think it's funny.
I think they are. I really do, because they have a really dark, like, cat and mouse sort of sense of humor. They like to play with their victims.
Yeah.
I also think the commentary that does land for me is that the Martians are just basically saying the total opposite of what they actually intend, right? And that's just a comment on, I don't know if it was society back in the 90s, but it's certainly kind of topical now, isn't it? I mean, you've got kind of important people telling you things that are not true and that are blatantly not true, and not even just not true, they're entirely the opposite of what is true. So that
and you can easily find out that it's not true, but that
doesn't matter, right? But yeah,
I think it's a reference to where like we want to believe that it's true. Because we don't want to deal with the alternative, so we like, oh yeah, you're here in peace, excellent, cool.
Well, yes, or you just hear what you want to hear, like, oh, they're in peace, they come in peace, and then you just go about the rest of your business, and it goes back to what we said earlier about everyone's just in their own world in this movie, and it doesn't matter what's going on around them, even when it's
what they want to believe.
Yeah, but even when it starts blowing up, it's just
nice.
It's just people doing what they want, still gambling in Vegas when things like this are happening. But that
is a bit weird. I find it funny, but it is a bit strange how nobody, like the aliens come in, it's kind of like a minor news story. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
I did love the, they have a joke when you see the newspaper headlines. And what was the exact, I've got it written down here. Oh yeah, the New York Tribune headline is "Existence of Interplanetary Life Confirmed." And then the New York Post just says "Martians" with like 5 exclamation points after.
That's all you need, man.
I think that might be like Tim Burton having a little knock at like, oh yeah, the New York Post is trash, basically.
Well, there was a little bit of Tim Burton, common visual was the newspaper. Because in Batman, we constantly go on about the newspapers and make reference to Newsies.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was thinking too, because Brosnan has a weird line in it as well. Like, I know, because we had, like, within Batman Returns, there was loads of religious allegory that were like, oh, I guess because they're just trying to set up the Penguin as being the Antichrist, I guess, basically.
Yeah.
But Brosnan does have the one line of like, and they seem to emphasize it, where he's like, "This is the most important moment since Jesus walked in Galilee," and everyone kind of goes silent for a second. I was like, "Is that supposed to be a theme here, or like, are you doing like a Prometheus? Oh yes, the Martians came before, and they helped society raise it up from the ground,
so
and now they come to raise
Mars
everything
Attacks-
to the ground and stuff."
Mars Attacks is part of the new alien continuity with Prometheus and Covenant.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes, this is exactly
Absolutely.
what it is.
Why not?
Well, it's better than either of those two.
I was really shocked because I was actually on Prometheus Minute recently, and it was great fun. Connor, you've had Connor on Mogwai Minute.
Indeed.
He's actually like, I always thought when that show was announced, like, this is going to be a very dry, very analytical, very gray show, and then you talk to the guy, and he's like one of the most fun people you could ever hope to meet, really. But I was stunned to find out he's actually doing Alien Covenant next as well.
Oh, like
No,
by
see,
himself
I
as
defend
well?
Prometheus, but I'm not defending Covenant.
Careful, George likes those movies.
I do.
Covenant as well.
I listen. As I have said before, recently, give me a xenomorph terracing around and killing people. I'm happy.
But what did you think about The Predator, right?
Oh,
Because
See?
no. I'm triggered.
The Predator, I legitimately think is the worst film ever made.
It's funny that you bring that up because, like, just yesterday, I got in a conversation on Facebook about both of these, stemming
George likes
from
it.
my liking of Mars Attacks, and like, I like
Yeah.
the Predator. I think it's fun. I think it's fun.
Bye.
No, I think it's the worst film I've ever seen in my entire life.
Oh,
I was
George.
embarrassed to be in the cinema with Lol and Niall. I had to go and have a stiff drink afterwards. I could not believe what I was watching.
Delete George off Facebook.
Yeah. That's you done, George.
I was worried, is there going to be too many hot topics of conversation? Because there's a scene where Natalie Portman gets a pizza delivered to her room too. It's like, steer clear of that pizza topic.
I know,
'cause we
I
don't
need
wanna
to
get
talk
in.
about that
I
pizza.
refuse to drag this podcast into another
was
pizza.
no
debate.
pineapple
too
I
many
had a
hot
pizza
topics.
last night with pineapple on it.
Zero pineapple on that pizza.
Well, the thing is too, because she's reading a biography of the Buddha, so I guess it must be just like a margarita pizza.
It looks
I'm
like a cheese
assuming.
pizza. It just looks like looks like a regular
Do you notice that's a thing in movies? Like, because, Home Alone and things like that.
cheese pizza.
Just a
Yeah.
cheese pizza.
Mm.
Like, in England, maybe our pizzas are crap. You don't tend to just get a cheese pizza unless you're about 6.
No. It is. It's like, well, where's the pizza? Like, this is, you give me the base. Where's the rest of it?
And the cheese is part of the base.
The only thing I liked less than Michael J. Fox's character was the fact that it wasn't pineapple on that pizza.
Oh, God.
God damn it. Niall, when you mentioned before about not getting certain things, there is one thing I didn't fully understand, right? Do the Martians want a fight?
I think they
Because-
do. I think they like the fight.
Well, that's what I thought initially, but then watching it this time, when the humans do certain things to fight back, they get annoyed.
Just run
Like,
away.
The Martians call us chickens, and then when we retaliate, they're like, what? So I don't know, what do they want? Do they want us to roll over, or do
The
they want us
prickly
to fight?
bunch.
I think they're
Yeah,
more like
yeah.
they like the idea that we'll be able to go over and just bully this planet into submission.
Yeah, it's just
And
fun.
then whenever there is they're kind of like, yeah, we want them to.
They've got issues.
They can try to do something, but they're not going to face the might of the Martians. And then when they do actually have something that could like potentially wound them, they're like, what the hell? Oh Christ,
That's
no!
like bullies
They're
are
very
like that.
sensitive.
They are
They're very
absolutely will
sensitive
like
bunch.
prey on you until you stand up to them, and then they're like, oh wait. Then they'll get like either like they'll get scared or they'll get even more angry.
Like a real bully. That's how you defeat bullies at
I
school.
think my favorite moment of trolling is like when Nicholson's president comes out with his great like speech about like we can live together and all this sort of thing, and then the Martian leader says like it's a tear in his eye and everything, and he's just like, oh, and he goes over and shakes his hand, and then the hand comes off. Friggin' again, it's like friggin' two Nas the Batman Joker buzzer, and when the Joker's hand comes off at the end of the movie as well.
Yeah.
It's just like ironically been used on the Joker himself. But I always loved that as a death that I guess stabbed through the chest and then the flag comes out at the top. And it's just like, yeah, that's the best possible death for that character, really. But
And that's a great flag, let me say that. The design on that's cool.
that was the thing. Like another thing I was slightly not confused by, but I was more like I wanted clarity. Is that they make a thing of when the Martian first sends, like the Martian leader first sends a communication, and he does this circle.
Yeah.
And then like Lucas Haas is like, oh, it's the international sign of the donut. And then you see later on they keep doing this thing, and I was like, they're good. Shouldn't they reveal what that means at some point? Should it not be like conquest or something.
I think
like
it's the
that.
international
That's
sign
what
of the bullseye.
Yeah, even that would have been. Even at the end of it, turned out like it was like that was the flag. Was literally just like, we are coming to claim your planet. So
yeah, that's what I thought. Like they're just sort of making a planetary symbol.
Or if they just did like a Tim Robbins and Hudsucker Proxy, where they just like, for kids, and just like draws the circle or something. But
I think you find it's
no, apparently the sound was created by using a duck quack backwards.
Oh.
So then I think then they got in Frank Welker to do, because you got in Frank Welker to do friggin'
Frank
everything.
Welker.
You need a weird sound.
Voice of Stripe.
Yep.
Yeah, hell yeah. Good connection.
And Optimus Prime.
No, Megatron.
Oh, who was Optimus Prime then?
Peter Cullen.
Ah.
I always felt bad for Welker then, because then they got in Peter Cullen for the movie, and then it's like, yeah, we're getting Hugo Weaving for Megatron.
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
what the hell? I'm right here.
That movie is so weird, right? I really like the movie, but it goes out of its way to do the opposite of any other film ever. It's like, yeah, we're going to kill all the main characters in the first 5 seconds. Oh, who do I root for in this Transformers movie?
I think now though it's just like, because then when they eventually made Bumblebee, it was just like, oh fuck Christ, you finally did it. You finally made one that's like a proper, solid, good Transformers movie.
Transformers actually look like Transformers, which is
I haven't even
good
seen that
place
one
to
yet.
start. It's really good.
I haven't watched it
I
yet.
forget.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen the last two other
Don't bother.
Transformers movies, and then
You
definitely
don't
haven't seen
need
Bumblebee.
any. There's no level of continuity in Bumblebee. It's like it's complete.
Yeah, I hear it's a
completely
full
clean slate.
standalone. So
It's great.
But it is refreshing to hear that you can actually see something on the Transformers, because in the other ones you're just like, what am I looking at?
Oh yeah, they really use the Gen 1 visuals to a large extent. My only gripe with Bumblebee is that they don't use like classic Gen 1 bad guys, Decepticons. They use weird ones that I'd not heard of before, but then I found like in the extended universe, and it's like, well, why don't you just use like some really classic ones?
I mean, like garbage
guess so, 'cause
disposal and Roomba.
Exactly.
They probably just think you're sick of the other ones at this point, because you'll associate them with Michael Bay, sadly.
Maybe.
I think that is it,
seen
because
them
they're just like, well, people have seen Megatron.
Maybe they could get the rights to them because of the Michael Bay bullshit.
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
knows?
I think they actually did. I think that the original plan for it was like, it's a prequel to those movies, kind of. Like, and then we'll see how it does. And then when it was like, when people really liked it, they're like, "Oh yeah, it's a completely new continuity now. Like, we're rebooting all of the Transformers."
All the other movies are
nothing-
Bumblebee's fever dream.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, nothing will top that cartoon movie, though. As I say, killing
best.
all the characters off. What the
It's the
hell?
best.
Genius.
Then
Genius
you
move.
root for Optimus Prime's arm.
Yeah, and then you've got Galvatron. That's a fantastic name.
Oh yeah,
Galvanize.
Oh, that's the thing, though, John. Galvatron, of course, voiced by Leonard Nimoy. But we talked about Leonard Nimoy recently in our Patreon episode on Aladdin and His Wonderful Lamp. Did you notice at the very beginning of this movie that the Sultan from that episode was in Mars Attacks?
What? No. What?
He was the guy showing Glenn Close all the silk. And I was like, it's him, Mr. Sultan. Oh my God, he's
and
here.
he's showing us silk. It's a reference.
Yeah.
To
Yeah,
the silk
yeah.
of the Middle East.
Of course. Tim Burton's like, this is going to be a deep cut, but someday, 23 years later, someone's going to pick up on this joke.
And someone's going to really laugh about my fairy tale theater episode.
One thing we should talk about in terms of Burton regulars who did very, very well, and I think that this film might be Danny Elfman's most underrated score.
I
'Cause
agree
the-
completely.
beautiful.
It is fun.
Yeah.
It's frenetic. It's energetic. It moves the story along. It's wonderful. It's so good.
Well, and it's got
Theremin.
It's got theremin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything
Yeah.
with theremin is great.
Of course, Hannibal plays it. Classic.
Yes.
But yeah, I do remember, like, that was one of my main memories of seeing this when I was like 10. Was like watching, and then just that opening credit sequence of all the ships going towards, and then how good the music was, and been like, holy crap, this movie's gonna be amazing and stuff. And then when I saw Danny Elfman live, I was just like, he's doing all the music from Tim Burton's, but like, he's doing like a select, one. So I was just like, he better play that music from Mars Attacks.
Did he do it?
Did he?
Oh, he did. It was like,
Yes.
I think like the thing is, because they started off so strong, I think like the first track was like Pee Wee. Second was Beetlejuice. Then it was all the Batman music.
Hang on,
Then it was
who
Mars
starts
Attacks.
with Pee-wee?
Yeah, I think maybe because that was the first time they worked together, so they're like, oh, I guess we'll start with this one.
Yeah, but the crowd aren't going to be... I'm not dissing Pee-wee. I've not seen it.
I'm dissing Pee-wee.
You gotta see Pee-wee, John.
No, you do not.
No, Pee-wee... We've talked about this before, haven't we, now? Pee-wee was not a thing over here.
No, not
Thank
at all.
God.
No.
I love Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
He's a camp icon. Come
what a
on,
shock,
give him that.
George.
He is a camp icon.
He is a camp icon.
Find out just the other day, though. I was watching an interview with Natasha Lyonne, and she's like, oh, yeah, one of my first roles ever I did, I was on Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Yeah.
I was like, what? And I looked it up, yeah, apparently like a mini Natasha Lyonne, like 10-year-old Natasha Lyonne.
Lawrence
Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Fishburne was a reaecurring character on there.
See, I think I would probably like Pee-wee. I do need to watch it. It's just... There's no nostalgia there for pretty much anyone in the UK.
I think the movies are better than the show because the show was actually aimed at children with some weird, like, slightly over-the-top adult content sometimes because it was kind of like, kids won't get this joke. But for the most part, it's aimed at children. It's campy and it's weird and it's crazy, but it is a kid's show. Whereas the movies are much more like, okay, we have this child's character, but he's definitely going to be in a movie that is portrayed by, it's a much more sophisticated vibe.
Yeah, I think I'd like it.
Well, we got into it like at the beginning of last season when Paul Rubens was on screen in Batman Returns, but that was a character. I don't understand Pee-wee. I don't understand him as I'd never got like, is he supposed to be literally a
Mentally
child?
ill.
No, he is a child who just so happens to live on his own with his own house and do his own thing.
Yeah,
but he is.
Well, I think
but then he's got
you're not meant
his
to know.
rival is like this 40-year-old man who acts the same way that he does. And it's like, well, what's going on here? And then there's like this romantic kind of tension between him and Dottie, like E.G. Daily. And it's like, but if he's a kid and she seems to be like, no, she's like a woman in her early 20s. She seems to be mentally competent and stuff. I just didn't get it. I was like, this seemed, and then particularly knowing all the Paul Rubens scandal from the mid-90s, been like, this seems even seedier now, knowing this. And it's like,
oh, no, it's not. He's not seedy for going to a theater like that.
That's what makes it even better, is that this is played by a guy who got picked up for masturbating in a porn theater. That's what makes it even funnier. As
Why
an
do
adult.
porn theaters exist, or did they, if
Exactly.
you're not going to be doing that in them?
I agree. I mean, why have them if you're not going to take advanance of them? And why get mad at people who
Exactly.
do that thing?
That's surely what they're for.
Why are you kink shaming America?
as obviously as, Taxi Driver has proven, the great first date places to go as well.
Oh, God.
I know, I took you on our first date to a porn theater, Lal, didn't I?
Trying to keep
I
that
don't remember that.
Taxi Driver vibe.
Went out and bonded over Backdoor Sluts 9.
Everyone's favorite edition.
It's the best one. It's got the best story, and the characters are really interesting.
I mean, you need to watch 1 through 8 to understand what's happening, but 9's where it really kicks.
I think they're kind of like
It's funny
the.
that you mentioned. Sorry to go off this topic, but I think it's probably best.
I agree.
I don't, but whatever.
There is a Pee-wee connection because actually Danny DeVito's in this film and Pee-wee is also in Matilda with Danny DeVito.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Plays the cop on the stakeout of the house.
Oh.
Not as Pee-wee though.
Yet another movie I haven't seen, but you're well versed in Matilda.
I think you should do it as a hiatus episode.
Matilda's great.
Well, we haven't really gone through the plot. We don't care.
I mean, the plot is very just like...
The plot's in the
plot in
title.
5 seconds.
Mars attacks.
So the Martians' heads all explode when they hear, as you said before, Niall, Slim Whitman's Indian Love Call.
Yeah.
It's not the first version of this song. This is his version. But it was Slim Whitman's second single, and it peaked at number 2 on the country charts, and went also into the pop music charts. So it's like a crossover hit. And it also made the top 10 in the UK, which is quite remarkable for something with a country tinge.
Yeah.
Because we're not partial to that. That's not something
Did
that
better than it
comes
should
over.
have.
I'm not partial to that, so.
I do enjoy Trixie Mattel, but it's a drag queen who does country, so it's a bit different.
That's fine. That's acceptable.
A bit more of a dynamic to it.
But what are we supposed to think about this song, right? I always assumed, I hope I'm right, that the Martians die because maybe the frequency of the singing is quite high.
That's what I feel like it
the
is.
yodely
Yeah.
bit.
Oh, thank God. Because sometimes I get the impression, is this movie trying to make me think this song sucks? Like, I don't get it.
I
Because
think a bit of both.
it's not a bad song. I don't get it.
I mean, the
It
song
is bad,
saves
so.
the world at the end, so...
Yeah.
I mean...
Like, is Tim Burton making fun of it because it's not Susie and the Banshees?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a bit of both myself.
Oh man, it would have been amazing if it was Prince. Like it was just, this was Tim Burton sticking the boot in the Prince for like, oh,
And then
get
they're
on
driving
and
around
doing
with
Batman.
the boombox. Party man.
Was this Tim Burton and Danny Elfman's kind of reconciliation piece? Because they did fall out, didn't they, at one point?
Yeah, that's but yeah, apparently they fell out because of the stress of working on both Nightmare Before Christmas and Batman Returns at the same time.
Yeah.
Then Howard Shore was brought in for Ed Wood, and apparently I guess because they just like, oh, we're like friggin' peas and carrots, like those guys. Apparently, it was that they literally met up at a coffee shop. And then they just sat down and like, let's never talk about that period of our lives again. And now they're like best friends again and stuff now.
To be honest,
bros.
Nightmare Before Christmas, as much as I love it, that must have been hell to work on.
Oh yeah.
And Tim isn't even directing it.
Mm.
So you haven't even got your friend there to help you, but he's put you in that position.
Although, though, I should also mention, there was a controversy about the Slim Whitman use and stuff from Howard Stern. Because apparently,
I did know this, yeah.
Yeah, apparently he in the early 80s, part of his radio show was that he had a recurring bit called Slim Whitman versus the Midget Aliens from Mars, in which Slim Whitman songs were used as weapons against Martians.
Yeah.
And then, so he was like, when Mars Attacks came out, he was just like, that's my idea. Like, I want credit for it. And then apparently it seems like it was an honest mistake. And then we had Tim Burton on as a guest, because I don't think he took it that far, because he's like, oh, I'm a fan of Tim Burton, so I'm not going to go freaking target the guy.
And this seems like a movie he would be in as well. You could get Howard Stern.
Yeah, totally. But apparently, he brought it up to Tim Burton live on air, and Tim Burton just went like, oh, wow. Oh, you should have sued me. Because when he played him the bit, he's like, yeah, it's the same friggin' idea.
Well, Burton's really good with credits, like, because he co-wrote the screenplay to this and said, oh, don't credit me, it's fine.
Yeah,
like, he was really nice about it. Like, nah, don't worry.
Also, because it was written by Jonathan Gems, who came in to do rewrite work on Batman, of course, the first Batman movie. And he's also written several plays, including the hit play Susan's Breasts.
Oh, sounds lovely.
What is this about?
I looked into it. It sounded like it was a real, like, harrowing tale that just happened to have like a...
It's a titular piece.
Oh. End the episode there. We can't top this.
I was like, that's it. Good night, everybody.
You say topless?
But anywho, just trying to think about other points. I will note that the little things like originally the Martian death rays were supposed to be they wanted the sound effect of the heat rays from War of the Worlds. But they were turned down by Paramount, so I guess it's like, well, they didn't like what they were seeing.
Well, the effects, I love the effects and the sound on these ray guns because they're so cheesy.
Yeah,
it's fantastic, and the weird skeletons they leave behind in 2 different colors.
Yeah, red and green, depending on the color of the ray. Yeah,
yeah. So they must be different weapons, right? Like one's like I don't know. They must do different things, I assume.
Apparently, the film was moved from. It was originally supposed to be brought out in August, and then they were told like, no, you've got till December. And apparently the red and green skeletons are designed to give it a Christmassy vibe.
That's weird.
Because
I love that. Because it's like Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and Batman Returns.
Yeah. Apparently you can
cute.
see red and green skeletons in Beetlejuice in the background at one point. So I guess he's like, yeah, another little nod to Tim Burton lore, as it were.
Yeah,
so a Mogwai connection there.
Exactly.
Gremlins is a Christmas movie.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And it has red and green Christmas robe.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love stuff like that.
I mean,
It's nice.
we do all represent the 2 greatest Christmas films that aren't Die Hard. So.
Exactly.
Although actually talking about Die Hard as well, in my running tally of trying to document how apparently Jack Nicholson is like the nicest guy in the world, despite the fact that Mac McDonald from one of his goons from Batman really hated him.
From Red Dwarf.
But this movie also features Rachel Brusant, who is one of Jack Nicholson's exes, who he has 2 children with, but he's just like, he keeps getting her jobs in his movies, basically, because they're just friends. And I was like, that's so nice. And apparently, yeah, she's one of the prostitutes that Martin Short picks up. But she also features in Die Hard. She's one of the hostages in the Nakatomi Plaza. So I'm not sure entirely which one, but I'm assuming, trying to think of like female hostages that aren't Holly. It would probably be that one that Holly said to, like, oh, it's John. Only John could piss off a guy that much and stuff. So I'm assuming that was Rachel Brosnahan. She said
maybe she's the one having sex in the office when they bust in.
Could be.
Oh, yeah. Did we get that minute, Niall, when we did Die Hard minute?
We got when the guys. Yeah, no, actually, yeah, we did. We got when the terrorists are first showing up and they barge in on a couple having sex. Yeah.
Well, if you've not heard it, listeners, Die Hard minute has been out for a long time. So go and hear it. And speaking of actors, this is only very loosely connected. It's just a very good way to segue in. We need to talk about Tom Jones.
Oh, yes.
Right. I could imagine this angering people. Neil. But I really love that he's just playing Tom Jones. He can't really act, but he doesn't care. He's like, I'm just going to be...
Exceptionally Welsh.
Exceptionally Welsh. I like the idea of Americans hearing Welshmen.
So he can be.
Yeah, I was all right. I was all right with him. Yeah, he was fine.
I was more shocked at like how cheap his backing was when you see him perform. Because like this Tom Jones, he's like one of the biggest.
It's like an afternoon show. He does not put on the big lights until later. You know, he's not doing the headliner.
Well, I know Tom Jones was a big thing in like Vegas, right? But is he known to Americans? Because here he's a big deal, like separate from that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very familiar with his music, this is long before the John Mulaney bit about What's New Pussycat and the Salt and Pepper Diner that sort of like didn't really like reintroduce him, but it definitely brought him a little bit back into the consciousness. But I've always liked Tom Jones, like back in like high school, I thought he was really cool.
See, here he's always been a big deal, but it always seems to be to old people. Like, no matter what age you are, it's old people love Tom Jones.
Can I just say as well, had this movie been made now, it would have been Britney.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
Yeah,
I would love to see
Vegas.
that.
Britney and Gaga are in Vegas. So.
It's Britney, bitch.
Yeah.
I just love the way he's in this as... He's one of the survivors, as is the trope.
Yeah.
That's just great. Tom Jones running around with a group of survivors, leading a...
I do love this, like that Vegas group too, how they come together. It's like Danny DeVito he's just there. He's just some guy.
For no reason.
And then he meets Tom Jones, like, hey, you're Tom Jones, aren't you? And then it's just like, I guess we're all together now. And then they just go about this little adventure.
It's a bit like when you go out on the town and there's only a couple of you. You haven't got your usual group of friends. And you meet people. It's like 3 a.m. You're all really drunk. You meet randoms who take you to some after party. It's just, who are these people? Why am I in their house?
I think it has I like the whole. So I feel like Zombieland borrowed that, where they have like a weird accrual, and then there's like the celebrity cameo that he also happened to survive the whole thing.
Yeah. Oh my
That's
God.
the thing. I think I might have brought it up on the show way back at one point. Because I remember, I think it was with Dan Campling. Because I remember his counterpoint to just didn't satisfy me at all. Because I was complaining about like the movie This Is the End, which is like all James Franco and friggin' Seth Rogen's is like apocalyptic thing. And it's like, there's loads of like celebrity cameos in that. Like Rihanna shows up and Hermione's there and stuff. And then their deaths are so just like, Like Rihanna just gets sucked into the ground. Hermione just leaves the room. You don't even see what happens to her. And it's like, if I was a celebrity doing a cameo in a movie where I'm going to be like viciously killed, I want it to be like the level of Jack Nicholson, like the hand comes off and stabs you through the friggin' chest. Or like even Michael J. Fox, like he's crawling towards Sarah Jessica Parker and all of a sudden just looks back and there's a friggin' green skeleton.
Tim Burton loves dismembered hands.
Yeah. Oh, he does actually, yeah. But then, because I remember Dan Campling was like, oh, if you go there for the amount of prosthetics you have to go on, no one's gonna want to do all that all the time. And I was like, I'm pretty sure celebrities sit through hours of makeup every day to do like friggin' like Jack Nicholson playing the Joker. Like that didn't happen in half an hour,
Oh, no.
But yeah, that's I think that's why I like this in particular, because the deaths are, for the most part, are pretty big and flamboyant and stuff. Apparently, it could have been more so, because originally the script had like the rays did different things to people. Like, so literally some people would melt, some people's arms would come popping out of their sockets, like other people's like their heads would burst and stuff like that.
Well, and the original draft had 60 main characters.
Yeah.
So
and then,
they could have all died in hilarious ways.
Exactly, yeah. But then it was just like, I think they were told, like, unless you want this to be an R-rated 18 certificate movie, you're going to have to dial it back. So, like, okay, they just get turned into skeletons then.
Yeah, for budget as well. Like, there was going to be even more world destruction. They were going to just, see loads of major cities getting destroyed. But the studio were like, no. This is costing far too much. Cut that right back. Oh, okay. Use CGI and get rid of half of these cities getting destroyed. Fine.
Yeah. Actually, one other question, though, I did have about it was like, because I was trying to get some kind of clarification. But I think it might have been, like, no, they're just, like, messing around with people. But, you know, there's one point where they have this sort of, you know, weird press conference, and then this guy stands up and he's just like, oh, the Martians have 2 sexes like we do. Which, of course,
that's our favourite bit of the movie.
wouldn't fly now.
No, Niall, it's, do the Martians have 2 sexes like we do?
And there's no real mugging.
I
It's
fucking love
just
that.
like a...
Sorry, blank the swears.
Yeah, exactly. I love that bit. And I feel like it might, but I feel like there would have to be a little bit more context to it today. But I feel like it still it would play. They would just have a much more different resonance because, you know, of the LGBT plus movement and all that sort of stuff. You know, it's like it's way more in the cultural consciousness now, so it wouldn't be more like a throwaway joke as it is here. It would be more like a pointed sort of like maybe a moment of satire type thing.
You could make that. Oh, that would be great satire in the new version.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It probably would have been like if the Martians got 2 genders like we do.
Yeah, you'd probably.
Rather than sexes.
No. Sexes makes more sense. You'd have to make a different joke with gender. This gets complicated.
Gets tricky.
But it reminded us. What was it you said specifically?
Tilda Swinton totally could have done that as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
No, Lol, it reminded you of another film. I'm trying to remember. Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh yeah, do the chickens have large tongues?
It was very Napoleon Dynamite.
What, son?
But I was thinking then afterwards, like, so do the Martians? Because there's a hint of they have some kind of perviness about them. Because when you see the the High Commander coming down, he's reading a Playboy and stuff, and then he turns to Sarah Jessica Parker, where she's in like this kind of 60s sort of shiny silver bikini thing.
I feel like
and then he gives her this real.
I feel like it might be more like just inquiry. Like, okay, what's up with this? Because you see all the Martians running around in like speedos when they're on the ship. They're like basically wearing nothing but these little briefs, which is probably the only thing that makes them do that is just because they wouldn't get a weird ding rating for like naked Martians. You know, but I can't imagine they've got a lot going on down there as far as differentiation.
No.
Didn't it say they didn't have genitalia when they were like analysing the dead body?
It did.
But it kind of looks like they do when you see them in their underpants and he's looking at the porno.
It looks like something
Kind of looks like
Probably just doing a Bowie with a potato and a song.
Yeah, they're using a packer, you know.
That's one of those things though, because like the red Speedo thing, and because their bodies are so like emaciated, it makes them look like they're almost like a kind of slave race. But then all the Martians seem to be having great fun all the time. So
I
it's
feel
just
like,
they're just
along with my Gremlins hypothesis, I feel like they might be plant based rather than like meat based. So maybe they spawn by pods, and they have like sort of an asexual reproduction process where they're grown rather than birthed. So that's why they don't need sexual.
I think they might
bits.
be, because the poster for it is like hundreds of them, like in a row, and you just see the top of their heads, except for someone. There's like one alien looking up, and you see his eyes, but the rest of them, it kind of looks like a field. It looks like sprouts or broccoli or something.
Yeah, like calciferous sort of veg.
Yeah. It's so maybe they do grow.
Yeah,
like
and then when they sort of like
kids.
deteriorate once they die, and they get this sort of like weird green gunge that's kind of like photosynthesis breaking down type thing. I think they're plant based.
Yeah.
It's like Audrey 2.
Yeah,
Audrey 2.
exactly.
Or in fact, keeping with the 2 theme, Troll 2.
Oh, yes.
Everyone's favourite anti-vegetarian film.
Which we love as vegetarians. So, fail.
You guys love that irony.
no.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if have any of you guys seen that that documentary though, like Love and Saucers? It was like this artist in his 70s has come out and mentioned like, oh yes, I've had many sexual experiences with aliens.
Yes. Yeah,
And he's just
on Facebook.
And it's just like, he's just like, I've watched the whole thing. It's like, and the thing is, like, the documentary isn't like, it never has a counterpoint to him. It's just him presenting it as if like, this is fact. Throughout my entire life, I've been frequently abducted by aliens, and I've had sex with them. And particularly one in particular, which is like, the old gray, like the old school Grey's alien, but with just like black hair. And I was like, yes, we had a child together and stuff. And it's just like, okay, what?
This should have been in communion.
That child is Tommy Wiseau.
Yes.
It's like everything's coming together. Finally, it makes sense.
We also, going back to Tom Jones, I mentioned it briefly earlier. The last shot of this movie, I was in stitches. I think it's one of the greatest things to ever happen in film history.
Oh yeah,
Tom Jones frolicking with woodland creatures. It's a beautiful sight.
That's funny too, because they're doing that classic, like movie comedy ending thing, where like the music starts playing. You don't know where it's coming from, but Tom Jones starts dancing to it. As if, like, it's not unusual actually playing somewhere.
What's the word for that, George? Isn't there a word for that?
Diegetic.
Oh, that's the one.
Yeah.
I just wonder though, that means like Tom Jones is now the world's only entertainer. So everyone is obligated to listen to Tom Jones.
Oh, he's going to be rolling in dough.
He is.
He just has to do requests, and as John Mulaney shows up, and he's just literally requesting that he perform What's New Pussycat
over and over again.
Over and over and over again.
Except for one, it's not unusual.
Collapsing. What's New Pussycat? I can't go on.
But that is the thing. I don't know. Like, does anyone have anything else they really want to? Any major points they want to bring up? Because I'm trying to think of like what else is there to say about Mars Attacks beyond the fact that like we know where we all stand on it, except for Neil obviously is in the he's been backed into the corner there, I guess. But
I just want to reiterate, Lisa Marie, alien disguise, whatever you want to call it. That's the best part of the film to me. That's amazing. I think of that scene, even though it hasn't got a normal Martian in it. That's the scene I think of.
It's very RuPaul, like sashaying through the halls.
Oh yeah, the walk. It's like creepy.
It's sexy though. It's
it's like
fluid and
unnervingly hot.
They also they use it for humor as well when like she falls behind a little bit and then she has to do like a speed glide.
Oh,
but the arms are going. As if
I love that though. That like she like sneaks up on him and just has a whole like sinuous snake thing, and he's like, oh. I loved how he's constantly surprised at how she moved around so quietly.
Oh yeah.
How do you think they did that effect? Like, is it roller skates or
like a board or something? Yeah, I didn't look into that actually.
Yeah. I do love I think that actually would be a great costume to pull off for Halloween or for a drag show or something. Though all the stuff, but then actually to have the torn skin around where like you see the Martian stuff.
Niall, a Halloween, I'm expecting you to rock it.
I might see if I can put that together.
With the bra.
Yes.
And the flared hips.
With the padding.
Yep.
Like constantly walking about on a skateboard, just gliding along.
I'll pull it on a rope. It's fine.
And John's just dressed up as Martin Short for some reason. But no.
That would be a hell of an outfit for me. People expect something very different. It's like, I'm Martin Short.
It was like, well, you're Martin Short on time and making a costume or something? One of the other things it was just a kind of like a personal curious note is that, because they mentioned at one point, they're like, oh, how come we've friggin' looked at Mars? We never saw any signs of life on it. And Pierce Brosnan's like, well, the Martian canals are actually very deep. They probably built up an entire society underground. And that's a concept that's in the movie Invaders from Mars, which is a movie that stars an actress called Helena Carter. Oh! I always wonder if Tim Burton, at some point throughout that marriage, he must have been like, you've got the same name as like one of my favorite actresses from one of my favorite movies and stuff.
Well, that's exactly why he probably fancied her in the first place. Let's be honest. He, I don't mean this as a diss, but he does seem to collect women based on other things he likes. It's a bit like... Who was it who married Lisa Marie Presley?
Michael Jackson. Nicolas Cage as well.
Nicolas Cage, that was it. Because he was obsessed with Elvis Presley. And it's like, so I'm so obsessed with him, I'm going to collect his
wife.
His wife.
I'm going to reproduce with him.
Which is insane.
Yes. I mean, it's one of those things that you can't like... For like Nick Cage, it's like, who am I to tell him how to live his life and stuff? But like the fact they named his son Kal-El because he's into Superman, it's like, call him Clark. Like Clark is fine.
Nope.
Kal-El. That kid has to live with being called Kal-El for the rest of his damn life now. You know?
I think Cal though. You can get with Cal. Mm-hmm. I know a Cal, so there you go.
Because the kid's just going to change his name as soon as he gets to high school. He's going to be like, yeah, call me C or something, like, or call me K or like whatever.
C-Dog.
There you go. I was like, yeah, but then I can't. If Nicolas Cage he's doing fine for himself, so I guess he knows. what he's doing. But yeah, is there anyone who has any other major notes for Mars Attacks?
No, I don't think so. I think I've said everything that I want to say about this movie.
Well, are you glad you at least watched it again after all these years, even though you didn't like it?
Yeah,
was it worth a watch?
It was all right. It was Sunday lunchtime. So yeah, it was fine. I was just pottering about doing some ironing and making lunch. So yeah, it was fine. No, it was. I mean, I didn't, like I said at the start, I didn't hate it. I just wasn't. I just didn't get a lot of the intent and the satire looks like it's passed me by a bit. And like I said, some bits of it seem to land. And you know, and again, actually, the only thing that I did have written down that we didn't talk about was the fact that at the start, the president is kind of considering the PR angle above anything else, which is obviously quite worryingly topical today. And so I think some of it did land, and so I didn't hate it, but I think it should have been maybe a funnier script.
I get that.
I would have probably liked it a little bit more, but it was okay.
Room for improvement. I think that's fair.
Is it better than Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet?
Oh yeah, because that's just nauseating, that movie.
But George, do you have any final words you want to say on Mars Attacks?
I think it holds up. I love it. When you suggested watching this, I was like, yeah, okay, definitely. And then even watching it, I haven't seen it. I watched part of it a month or two ago because I think it was on HBO, and I thought it was like, oh yeah, it'll be fun. And it wasn't on there anymore, so I had to actually find other means to watch it. But then sitting down actually with the intent of like taking it in, I was being way more analytical of it, and I was like, yeah, I really love this movie.
I'm just more curious though, because I do think of it in terms of like it is that kind of, you know, in the 80s after Gremlins there was the wave of Gremlin ripoffs. So you had like Critters and freaking Ghoulies and stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh god, yeah.
But this is
pretty much
like,
all bad, let's be honest.
Like I don't think that's what like Tim Burton was going for. I don't think he was like, you know, cashing in on Gremlins 12 years later.
No.
But there is a kind of slight, I always like kind of consider it in there of been like I think when we were talking about it on Facebook, it's like I would put this with not the first movie, because the first Gremlins movie has a real dark, genuinely dark edge, and there's, you know, characters you really grow to care about and stuff. Like they seem like real people. Whereas in the new batch, which I love, has like an inherent wackiness to it, and there's like a lot of...
Yeah, this is the same comedy to me.
Yeah, it's the same kind of vibe. And then like I know, George, you're saying that Gremlins 2 is self-referential.
It's so weird because like I don't like the wackiness in Gremlins 2. Maybe because this isn't based off of a movie I love. This is its own entity. Yeah. Whereas Gremlins 2 is parodying a movie that I adore. So I'm like, oh no, stop making it to be that way. Whereas this, I'm like, just run with it.
It was one of those things though, is like in terms of like how it works as a spoof. It's like, because it's like, I guess it is kind of weirdly self-referential because in itself it exists as a B movie sci-fi Martian invader thing, and it's playing up all the tropes of that. But then when does that go from being self-referential into the flat-out spoof territory and stuff? And
yeah, it rides that line, and sometimes maybe, definitely for Neil, it doesn't always get it right.
Yeah. But no, I think at the end though, I was very much like, I think I saw this so many times as a kid, and because I used to, I mentioned on Facebook, I used to own the VHS of this, and irritatingly, it was an ex-rental copy. So if you lined up everything alphabetically, like I did, you had this like nice smooth line of videotapes, and then this one that was way bigger than the other ones.
Oh, and those old giant cases you get.
yeah. It really bugged the crap out of me that was there.
And did it have the proper cover, or was it one of those that's like the Blockbuster cover?
Oh, no, it was an actual cover. It wasn't that poster you were talking about. It was the other poster we see, the Sarah Jessica Parker dog.
Yeah.
Apparently that dog in real life was owned by Lisa Marie as well.
See?
And had the Martian and like the Martian girl, as she's called in the credits.
Wait,
as well.
so
I will say for those of us who did like this, it definitely came out at the right time, I think. It was the height of sort of UFO mania at the time, like a resurgence of it from like the 50s and 60s, because you had, the X-Files and whatnot, and Independence Day is part of that. So it came out at the right time. It should have done really well.
There was a thing of aliens. Like we talked about in the last hiatus episode. You guys would know, but we talked about Communion with Chris Walken. Chris Walken himself came on the show, of course. That's what I meant by that.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a thing in the 90s that people were just fascinated by alien abduction. It was a real thing. We mentioned that movie, Fire in the Sky, X-Files, Independence Day. There was a thing about aliens in the culture.
Well, didn't they do, was the Outer Limits 90s?
Of course. Sorry?
Was the Outer Limits 90s?
I think the Outer Limits, it might have had a revival in the 90s, but like I think I was.
They were definitely showing it still, maybe because the X-Files was a thing.
Yeah. I think it was just a thing. It was maybe because like the Whitley Scriber books were out and stuff, and then you just had other people coming out with their alien abduction stories. And I think it's time for an alien revival. Yes. So we went through like we've got like 20 years later now. Like, is the culture no longer interested in beings from outer space? Maybe now it's time we'll get some more invasion movies, or we might get a friggin' abduction movies. I've not heard about alien abductions in years now.
Yeah.
It seems as if people don't care about them anymore.
Well, at the very least, now is the time, Tim Burton, to do Dinosaurs Attack, the sequel to this. Make it
There you
so.
go.
Yeah. Just bring back all the same cast as well.
Yeah.
Tom Jones is brought back.
Oh my God, that'd be so good. What's Tom Jones doing now? I don't know. He was on The Voice or something.
I think that's
not doing that anymore.
that is all he does. He is just like one of the guys from The Voice now. Be great though if Tom Jones comes back and that bird that had landed on his arm has grown into this giant like, or he shows up. The opening shot of that movie is Tom Jones with a pterodactyl on his arm.
Perfect.
And he's like
and
the
you
major
could explain
villain or
it
something.
away. Like the aliens have left some kind of weird trace radiation that's sort of messed with the wildlife. Here you go. Perfect.
Maybe all their
Yeah.
brain goo sort of infected, DNA, and all of a sudden things started mutating, and dinosaurs came back.
Oh my God. This
The
is
thing
perfect.
is-
Tim Burton.
But the thing is,
Contact
Burton has
us.
the clout
They
too, because as
de-evolved.
much as I despise that Dumbo remake, that made a ton of money. So I guess he could be like, yes, this is what I'm doing next. And then the studio will be like, well, you did make us a load of money. So
Yeah.
I guess, go ahead and make your Dinosaurs Attack movie. But
I want a new Tim Burton passion project. No more of this crap he's doing at the moment. Go back
Yeah.
to your roots. Do
although
a passion
apparently
project.
the thing he was enthusiastically working on for the longest time was Beetlejuice 2. And I was like, don't ever do
silly
it.
that. No.
Don't, just
Doesn't
leave it
need it.
alone.
No.
But yeah, Lol, do you have any parting thoughts for Mars Attacks?
No, not really. I think I've covered everything, and I've been quite quiet, but I have covered.
Yeah, I think at the end I still enjoyed it as a movie. I've seen it so many times. I was like, I know I'm going to enjoy this, and then I watched it and I was like, yes, I did. So
Well, hopefully all of you enjoy it as well, but for now we will depart into the dark, dark night, and up into the stars and across the cosmos. Would our illustrious guests like to tell everyone where they can find them online? I'm sure everybody knows already, but go ahead. George and Neil, you guys can go first, because Lol, do you have anything to promote, actually? You're not promoting anything at the moment. No. Okay.
Go on, George.
You go first, Neil.
Well, I guess George and I were, I guess, both hosts of the Mogwai Minute, which is a Movies by Minutes podcast talking about Gremlins and Gremlins to the New Batch, 1 minute at a time. You can find us on all your podcatchers at the Mogwai Minute and in various other places online. And go buy a t-shirt at tpublic.com/Mogwai Minute. They're all still on there.
Okay.
And
I will say I'm hoping that whenever this cartoon comes out, this thing that the Gremlins cartoon show, that does sound like intriguing, but you never know. It could be, although American animation's gone through a real renaissance at the minute, because like a lot of kid shows are genuinely great at this present moment. So like fingers crossed, this could turn out to be like a great show. But I'll be hoping there will be some form of reunion episode for you guys, and you'll be doing at least a season overview or something of it.
Yeah, I think we said we'd do
we
that.
talked about it. If it comes out and it
Yeah.
actually seems like it's worth the effort, we were going to we'll come about a Mogwai retirement.
Even if it's terrible, do at least
I
one
guess we'll do a
episode
recap
so
of the
you-
whole thing. It's like, don't watch this garbage pile, but we'll talk about it anyway. Yeah, I'm also, my next project in mind is Way to Dune Minute, which we mentioned before, the minute by minute breakdown of 1984's Dune, directed by our favorite director, David Lynch, and all the weird wildness that comes with it.
It's just so strange of all the films of David Lynch, the first one to be done minute by minute is the one that's reviled by the most people. But
Have you got a release date, George?
Not yet, but
Alright.
it'll happen.
Keep an eye out for it, everyone.
Yeah.
You're on Twitter, aren't you?
Yeah,
as
it's
you
Way
say,
to Dune
so-
Minute for everything. I try to keep the social media as close to the title of the piece as possible. So just type in Way to Dune Minute, it'll pop up.
that felt like a statement in itself, though. Way to do minutes for everything.
Yep.
That's good life advice. And I'm sure you all know where to find us if you're listening to this. I bloody well hope so. But if you don't, we're on Facebook at the Bat Minute Listeners Cave. We're on Instagram at, what's it called now, Niall? Is it The Bat Minutes?
I think it's the Bat Minute. Yeah.
The Bat Minutes. We're on Twitter at Bat Minutes. Yes, you know where to find us. Rate, review, subscribe on iTunes, and do come to our Patreon, because you can get even more weird stuff.
And I don't know, maybe might cut this part out though. But it's in terms of planning, this might be the last hiatus episode, because it's kind of like this is our farewell to Tim Burton. Because after this, straight into Schumacherville. So
I'll see you, Tim.
Yeah, but we'll probably cover Tim Burton stuff in the Patreon episodes. We're not completely saying goodbye to him, but I will say it was nice to talk about Jack Nicholson again. There's always always a wonderful presence, always a great actor, and just happy to see him twice.
Well, I thought
2 times in this movie.
I thought if you did do another hiatus episode, maybe you should do 1992 movie Hoffa. Which is directed by Danny DeVito and starring Nicholson and DeVito and Robert Prosky of Gremlins 2 fame.
Yeah, that's actually a good shout. That I'm
also has the guy who played, I can't remember the actor's name, but it has the guy who played Josh in Batman Returns, the guy who gets his nose bitten by the penguin, and he also gets assaulted by Danny DeVito in Hoffa. So it's like bad year for that guy.
Beautiful.
Although it'd be actually quite culturally relevant too, because of course now we're on the verge of the release of The Irishman, wherein Pacino and De Niro, Al Pacino is playing Jimmy Hoffa in that movie. So
yeah,
you never know. We might have like both an alien invasion revival and Jimmy Hoffa's going to come back into people,
and an Irishman revival. Just in general.
Get on it, guys.
Yes, we will see you soon. I'm sure listeners will hear you. You'll hear us. Whatever. I don't know how this works. This is a visual medium, right? People are watching us live, I believe. People are watching me in my underpants right now. Yep, that makes sense.
I mean, at least this time, Lal is there literally in the room with you, so I guess she's watching you in your underpants.
Well, that's true. She is, yes. I'm sure it's an unpleasant sight for all concerned. But yes, do join us soon for more wonderful, exciting Bat Minute.